Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the Tuesday, March 26, 2024 council meeting at the Veterans Memorial Hall. All council members are here, and I will call the meeting to order, starting with a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. And if I can ask Mr. Kwolek to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for that, Mr. Kwolek. With that, we will move on to reports. Closed session report, Mr. Newmeyer.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. No closed session items to report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Newmeyer. With that, we will move on to mayor and council member reports, announcements, and presentations. I will go to my right, Councilmember Barton.
I just wanted to report that now I lost it. Where is it? That I attended the HSOC meeting this past week in place of Councilmember Zara, and I'm always pleased to go to those meetings. They're such bright, interesting people, and it's stuff that happens all over the entire county. So that was a good experience.
Thank you, Councilmember Landrum.
Well, the weather has been beautiful for the most part. I hope everyone has been able to get out and enjoy it. I was able to take a cruise in the gondola on the bay, and I just wanted to report back that that is a fabulous experience. So you get to be serenaded by Stefano, I think it's Stefano. So it's kind of over the top and pretty amazing. And he has to do it. He has to row, in a current. He doesn't sing and row at the same time because he's kind of out of breath. But I really encourage everyone to try that. It's pretty fun. Let's see, I attended the Downtown Design District meeting in which we decided to extend our term to one more meeting as it was felt that we hadn't adequately discussed housing before we bring any recommendation back to council. I also attended the Vistra meeting last week, and I was surprised as I had expected there to be a lot more residents in attendance. I felt like Vistra did a really good job of answering questions and that were submitted both online and in person, as well as at the end, finishing with a lightning round where they spontaneously answered questions. I also I was excited to view the whale in the harbor. I don't know if any of you got to see that, but I was having dinner in a restaurant on the Embarcadero and wasn't expecting it, but saw it spouting. It was pretty cool. And then I want to announce that my next town hall meeting will be on April 24th from 2 to 4 at the community center, and it will be on what is your vision of Morro Bay, with our situation right now where we're in the process of hiring a new community development director, and we're finishing up we're having recommendations for the Downtown Design District. We have a lot of big projects proposed in Morro Bay, and I just want to know what your vision of Morro Bay is. So come to the town hall meeting.
Thank you, Councilmember Edwards.
That's all really great stuff, Mayor Pro Tem Landrum. That was great. I want to piggyback off of some of the really cool things actually down in the harbor. I wanted to give a shout out to the Harbor Walk Inn, the player area where the beautiful tiled octopus and tiled sea otter. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you have not gone down there, the area is open now. There have been tons of kids around it, taking pictures. It's extremely Instagrammable. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it is. But I highly recommend you take a walk down by on the harbor and check it out. I also attended the Vistra Community Forum. I was thinking there would be a lot more community members there, but, you know, we've got more coming. And, you know, I think the unfortunate part about it, even though it was really helpful and very informative, we still had an issue, a technical issue, and that was no fault of theirs. So I just wanted to point that out. It was not their fault. But it was great and insightful. The questions from the community were really great. I appreciated all of them and all the different viewpoints. I also appreciated very much that Mr. David Yeager said to individuals that had more questions or wanted to have a more one-on-one conversation, he offered that up. I really appreciate that attitude. And obviously, we've got more to discuss, and there's going to be several more meetings to come. And, you know, I think this is at least a good second go for them. So we'll see where it goes from here. I also wanted to say that I have my neighborhood listening session for North Morro Bay from San Jacinto to Highway 41, and that's on Sunday, April 14th from 1 to 3. So if you live in that area, you are more than welcome to reach out to me now. You can RSVP through me, or I will have point people with a flyer, and that'll be going around hopefully this week. And we'll be talking about everything North Morro Bay and that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ford.
Thank you, Mayor Wixom. I also attended the Vistra Community Forum, and I have to say, though, taking into consideration the size of the place, the facility, and I think if we had put them in the community center where we've been hosting a lot of those, that it would have filled the room. So anyway, I think it was a decent turnout, but we could improve on that. And then the other thing I want to talk about is I attended the Rockview at Sunset ribbon cutting, the affordable housing complex that we have over off of 41. That was really great to attend. Some really heartwarming stories from residents, and it's really great to see that there's, I believe it was 22 residents from Morro Bay that are now housed there, and hearing their stories and how happy they are to be there. And then lastly, I did not attend the EBAC meeting that was supposed to take place this last Thursday because it's been put on hiatus for a short period of time while there's some moving parts and figuring out some things there before it reconvenes. But that's why I'm not reporting on Estero Bay Alliance of Care, why I'm not reporting on that this evening. And that's all I have for reports, and thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Ford. Yeah, I'll just echo, I think all of us attended the Vistra workshop along with the opening at the Haslo project, which was very great to see that finally having people in it after several months, and certainly appreciate the support that was given to Haslo through Assemblymember Addis's office to get the electrical done there. So it's great to see those rooms filling up and many local faces. I did attend the mayor's lunch workshop, in which we had an update from our state consultants, giving us a very bleak forecast for the budget for the state, which will trickle down obviously to all the municipalities. So that wasn't real encouraging. Sorry about that. Garage sale weekend was great. There was a ton of people in town. Hopefully people got rid of a lot of rubbish. I hope next year we coordinate with the garbage company a little more on pick up the week after instead of the week before. That probably would have helped a lot of people, but it was great to see so many people in town. And thank you for sharing on EBAC. I wish Sharon O'Leary a speedy recovery. I know she's feeling a bit under the weather, and so I think that is all I have right now.
Mayor, can I correct something
Yes.
that I said? Earlier, I said the date of my town hall was the 24th, and I was incorrect. It's Sunday, the 21st of April, from 2 to 4.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to move on to our recognition we have tonight, and then a presentation. And this is Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month. We have a proclamation, and I'm going to read that and then invite Shauna up. And I also see our rec department's head here, Kurt Carmichael, and Helica back there. Thank you for joining us this evening. They're here to support this proclamation. With that, this is declaring April 24th, 2024, as Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month, whereas the City of Morro Bay City Council recognizes that every moment in a child's life is an opportunity for that child to learn that the quality of these experiences may determine whether the child succeeds in school and in life, and that all children need caring and loving adults in their lives. And whereas April, Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month, marks a time to recognize that our community's children are precious assets, that the quality of their early years is a collective responsibility, and that we commit ourselves to ensuring that each and every child has access to a high-quality early environment at home, at childcare, at school, and in the community that will promote their optimal growth and development. And whereas in solidarity of the We Are the Care initiative, we as a community and partners and leaders envision a San Luis Obispo County where all families can find and afford quality care for their children, and where child care professionals are valued for their critical role in building solid foundations for children and families to thrive in the world. And whereas Saturday, April 6, 2024, will commemorate Day of the Child at the annual Children's Day in the Plaza celebration from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the San Luis Obispo Mission Plaza. This year's celebration, where children and families will have the opportunity to discover creativity, individuality, diversity, while exploring community resources and piquing curiosity around science, technology, engineering, and math. And whereas Friday, April 26, 2024, our county will participate in the statewide raising of the Children's Memorial Flag to honor and raise awareness about many children in our midst who suffer daily from the abuse and neglect, and pledge our support for strategies that strengthen families and protect our young ones as part of a national recognition of April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Morro Bay City Council is proclaiming April 2024 as Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month. And with that, I would like to invite Shauna up.
My name is Shana Paulson, and I'm here today representing the CAPSLO Child Care Resource Connection, as well as the San Luis Obispo County Early Care and Education Planning Council. That's our name, but we continue to be the Child Care Planning Council, and we've been here for some time, working in partnership with families in the community to plan for and promote the highest quality and accessible services for the care of all children and youth. We want to thank you for your ongoing support in creating a connected community for our children and families, and for not only recognizing, but for honoring, supporting, and even funding essential programs for the children and families in need. When recognizing April as Month of the Young Child, we recognize that our community's youngest members rely upon us as adults and leaders to build a world where they can not only grow, but thrive. We as adults wield immense power to shape the future generations and impact change. We have the capacity to fund programs to create inclusive learning opportunities for all children of all abilities, and advocate for families and getting them resources for food and early intervention services, to name just a few. As was mentioned, we also want to recognize that April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we want to acknowledge that child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships that are created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families themselves. Today I'm wearing blue. We'll be asking for you to do so in the near future as well, to honor our commitment to preventing child abuse and show our support for all of the agencies that are working together to promote programs and activities that create strong and thriving children and their families. So we're inviting everybody to the annual Children's Day on the Plaza event on Saturday, April 6th. You too should have received an invitation to join us in the festivities at 10 o'clock, where we're going to have special recognition for our local leaders and dignitaries. We'll be able to walk you around and introduce you to some of the partners and our other local leaders. Thank you again for taking time to honor April as the month of the Young Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month. We hope that this proclamation serves as a reminder of our collective responsibility to support our community's children and families every single day. And I'm lucky enough to have been given artwork to share with each of you, created by children at Cuesta College Children.
Please, thank you.
Oh, yay. Art.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think this is a whale.
Thank you. We appreciate all your time and effort and energy in this. Thank you. And again, thank you to our recreation leaders back there for the City of Morro Bay and all you do for the youth programs. It's greatly appreciated. And we have a fabulous rec program department, and it's just awesome to see the things the kids get to do here. So thank you all. With that, we're going to move on to San Luis Obispo County of Government's SLOCOG presentation on county-wide self-help transportation measure.
Good afternoon. I am James Worthley, the Deputy Director for the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments, or SLOCOG. SLOCOG is your regional transportation planning agency. We have a PowerPoint coming up, and it's comprised of the 7 cities and the county. Our board has 12 elected members, 1 from every city, as well as all 5 supervisors, with Mayor Wixom sitting on our board. We improve transportation by allocating federal and state funds, and we plan for the future that has our total population adding over 40,000 new people in the next few decades. The purpose of this presentation is that transportation funding has fallen short. It's not going to be fixed at the state or federal level. We need new stable local funds to address the transportation needs of our present and future, or we will continue down the current potholed road we've been on for decades. Looking at our adopted long-range 2023 Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP, we found that all investment areas have needs that cannot be met with state, federal, or local funds. The shortfall's already begun, and every year we fall further behind. Some will ask, why the shortfall? Let's talk gas tax. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we saw more people, more cars, more gallons, more travel, which fed the fuel tax, which paid to maintain and improve our transportation systems. The last 2 decades brought hybrids, fuel efficiencies, conservation, and more recently, electric vehicles. Cars are traveling further and paying less in fuel tax or nothing at all. This is not a blip, but a downward trend that will continue. In 2023 alone, California, 25% of all new cars purchased were electric vehicles. Now let's hit some of the misperceptions. Some will say that the gas tax will repair our roads. It was supposed to. It's not going to get there. It's not going to get us there in the future. The increase that happens every year for inflation isn't going to get us there either, because more electric vehicles means less gas tax. The state is not going to reprioritize its funds to our small area. Local funding might be reprioritized to the roads. That's up to your council for the city of Morro Bay. Caltrans has been said, maybe Caltrans will fix all our 101 problem. No, that's not correct. That's not how Caltrans operates. EV owners pay an average amount for road repairs. No, that's not even close. And the state will change, fill in the blank, something, and that will fix all of our roads and our transportation needs. That also is not true. Let's look at local road maintenance. The lower the index, the worse the average road, and the more it costs to keep up with the status quo. At 67 and 70, Pismo Beach and San Luis Obispo are doing pretty good, but pavement conditions in other areas are worse off, and recent trends aren't promising. I've got an error up here. I don't believe Morro Bay is all the way down at 48, but it's below 60 at this point in time for their pavement condition index. 101 doesn't run through Morro Bay, I know that, but your workers and some students and tourists all use 101 as a primary route that eventually land in Morro Bay. 25 years ago, SLOCOG received a $50 million grant to improve part of 101. That was the Cuesta grade. Recently, we received another large grant for a short southbound section in Shell Beach. That's our second grant in over 25 years. There's no funds yet to fix problems in the North County where peak hour volumes have surpassed those in Shell Beach, or to fix the common backup at 46 East northbound off-ramp, or the rest of the South County, or to improve the many interchanges and crossings that look much the same as they did 60 years ago. And we really wait another 25 years for the next small spot on 101. Now, 89% of Californians live in 25 counties that have a dedicated sales tax for transportation purposes. This includes all of our neighbors on the Central Coast. We do not. We've fallen behind. And tourists from those 25 counties get a tax holiday when they come here. Our neighbors get the same federal and state allotments as we do. And they add to that by $25, $35, $50 million every year. Then they turn around and use those funds and leverage hundreds of millions of dollars from the state. Competitive grants. Monterey Region's gas or sales tax, for example, pumps more than $12 million extra per year into their local road repairs. Be clear, we didn't lose out on $30 million a year or $210 million a year in the last 7 years without those funds to leverage our fair share of grant funds from Sacramento. We've lost out on over $400 million worth of local investments. And we've watched our projects' costs escalate over that time. Okay, there's drawbacks. It costs 50 cents per $100 of taxable items, but there is no sales tax on housing, utilities, prescription, groceries, or services. It amounts to about $2.30 per week for the median income. Only if it's approved by voters would it be enacted. This half-cent sales tax would generate $35 million a year, would reclaim $1 million from Sacramento by formula, and qualify us to get back at least our fair share of taxes paid between $40 and $50 million every year. It would collect a one-time bonus from the state for $5 million from the state for becoming a self-help county, trying to help our own transportation systems. It speeds up project delivery, reducing project costs. Many safeguards would be included as well, including audits, oversight committees, and it would sunset in 20 years. This tax would also be paid by our tourists. Right now, all of this is in draft form, and changes are expected. With your feedback, we can tailor this tonight, soon, to meet your city's transportation needs. Let's dig into this draft plan. The sales tax would be collected region-wide, aiming at a fair and understandable distribution. Last February, the SLOCOG board approved funding split to distribute the funds across the region. We divided our county into 4 subregions: the North Coast, the North County, the Central County, and the South County. The total funding is distributed based on the percent share of population of each subregion. Then within each subregion, a population share is used to distribute to the cities and the unincorporated community areas as well. One tweak is made to the population share formula. An added bonus of $3 million was provided to each of the 4 smallest cities through their smaller population amounts, Morro Bay included. We're going to focus on the North Coast, but I want to give you the full picture here. All subregions have a similar but tailored investments for their cities and communities. In the North County and South County subregions, the regional road safety improvements and mobility for all categories, you see a much bigger tilt for regional road safety. Those are investments on 101 primarily. The Central County see a more balanced approach for regional road safety and mobility for all, and in the North Coast, even more of a balance. Every city and community has their own specific lists of needs that could be funded if a region-wide sales tax was approved. Not just cities, but every community has needs. Let's focus now on the North Coast and the city. Based on population, a voter-approved measure like this would put $100 million unescalated for transportation purposes into the North Coast. 66% of that would go for local improvements and 34% for regional improvements. The Draft investment plan for Morro Bay. There we go. Has a list of specific improvements of types. We're two categories. There's now one category that's combined both road repairs and community road safety and congestion improvements for Morro Bay. This council could split those apart if they wanted or so chose to better call out where improvements were going versus where road maintenance dollars were going. Each city is given the opportunity to review and change these priorities. The ask today is to review this section and improve upon it. Then there are the regional improvement funds as well. In the North Coast, $34 million is set aside for regional improvements. Some of these improvements you might envision coming to Morro Bay, and you'd probably be right. These would address issues on or near your highway, as well as major bike corridors and transit. Our expectation would be that the city would capture a fair share, at least of these, and these funds could be used to leverage grant funds back from Sacramento. And by growing the pie, it frees up regular SLOCOG dollars for other competing priorities as well. Again, the ask today is for your city section and improve upon it. Together with your local measure, Local Roads First is how SLOCOG can help deliver your improvements. Lastly, when going after grant funds, it's important to show the state that we're not just begging for funds, that we're actively trying to meet our needs locally by pursuing efforts just like this. Any questions? Ooh, I had one last slide, and this one might be important. So this is a illustrative picture. It might be Morro Bay, it might not be exactly Morro Bay, but this is talking about road maintenance and what happens with the status quo investments for road maintenance. And this uses a PCI for an illustrative city at about in the mid-60s. And with a $3 million investment every year, they stay at that same level, mid-60s. That's that black dotted line, black bars. With an advance of funds, an influx of funds of, say, $10 million, and then $2 million, and then $1 million over the next 10 years, that same city sees their investment in $3 million plus this new influx bring them up into the 70s. This is how a regional measure can help bolster pavement conditions in many areas of our county. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Any questions from council?
Thank you very much. I do have a couple questions. One of which is, I did see the list that you received from Morro Bay. I'm assuming this was something compiled by our staff, correct?
So the project started off by collecting information from surveys that we had online and up for 6 months last year. Focus group that was held in Morro Bay last fall, and input from staff, yes.
And staff, and is this the list you're now using, or is this something that you were wanting us to go back and review and edit, and because you need it to be specific if we are to go along with this?
So this list identifies to the voters what's most important to Morro Bay. If I'm wrong and there's something that should be struck, if it's saying something that, yeah, that's needed, but no voter's going to vote for that per se. If there's something missing that everybody has been clamoring for, we want to improve upon that list. Now is the time to improve upon that list.
So by the time it comes back to us on, I believe, May 14th, then you're going to want the list that is going to you, and this is the one that is going to stand.
If this list comes
Correct?
back on May 14th, there are no changes on May 14th.
Okay.
On May 1st, the SLOCOG board would approve that final investment plan and send it out to all the cities for approvals. One can't change it because then it snowballs into changes for everybody.
Right, so it's going to be predicated on this list that you have and what we give you tonight.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Not tonight.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Sorry, on the 14th, May 14th.
Yes, Mr.
May I
Pollak.
make a clarification? So the city still does have time to change the list. Indeed, this list is a draft list, and should the council at a future meeting in April want to discuss this, of course, with, the approval of the city manager, then we could do that. So this isn't a final list now, but if it goes into May, it will be a final list.
So I am going to Atascadero on April 9th same day as your board meeting. And they can make changes also. So obviously, those changes could happen all the way until, I'm saying the 9th is the last date I can take any changes, because I've got to get it to the SLOCOG board a few days later.
Sorry, you meant May 9th? I'm sorry, I
I
missed
said
that.
that completely wrong. April 9th is your council meeting?
Yes.
Yes, April 9th is the last date to change any ticks, yes.
Thank you.
Hey.
Oh, yes.
Can you explain why, with the highway part, why Caltrans doesn't pay for that?
Yeah, so Caltrans maintains all of the pavement, and they do a great job maintaining their pavement. When there's an improvement needed, an interchange, a ramp extension, a auxiliary lane that connects two ramps, an overcrossing, an undercrossing, when there's an improvement, Caltrans turns to the city or to the region or to the county and says, you guys need to pay for that. Except if it's in a rural area and it's on a key focus route. So Highway 46 East, Caltrans has been putting hundreds of millions of dollars to improve that route because there's just not a population that lives along it to generate the funds for it. On urban corridors like the 101 between Paso Robles and Santa Maria, they turn to us and say, you need to pay for that, or at best, you're going to compete against every other urban highway corridor in the state, meaning we're competing against Bay Area, Los Angeles, San Diego, and the San Joaquin Valley for limited funds. They just don't have enough funds for that.
Thank you. I was just wondering, because some of the state highways are in such bad state. I was curious, about that, so that helps.
Yeah.
They are required to fix that stuff.
They do the maintenance and the potholes on their state highways. Unless their state highway's been relinquished, the community could actually say, we want to take that on because we want a little more local control. Then the state has relinquished it, and it's up then to the local jurisdiction to maintain it. I believe Arroyo Grande has that on 227 in their village.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I did have one more question that I was considering looking at this measure. Was there consideration about the sales tax limit at all for the cities and how this would work? Because it is something that obviously we'd want to make sure that we were staying somewhere below that limit. So just wondering if you wanted to comment on that at all.
Sure. So there is a maximum sales tax set for our county. None of our jurisdictions are at that threshold yet. Everybody is currently 0.5% below that threshold. There's potential that a city could try to capture that last 0.5 cent for themselves, which would then block a measure like this from going region-wide because that would have hit the cap already. There are legislative relief options if that's needed. But right now, it's all speculation whether or not we're going, whether or not they're going to try for additional. It's all the speculation out there. I can't answer for certain what's going to happen.
I just really appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
I have another question too, sorry. So with the sales tax, is that calculating inflation?
The $700 million?
Yeah, is that?
No.
No.
No, that is, right now, we know a 0.5 cent sales tax region-wide would collect $35 million per year. For 20 years, $700 million.
So in reality, that's really not going to be sufficient, probably because of inflation.
So that $700 million would be collected, but with inflation, we'd also, let's back up. In 2016, instead of $35 million like it would collect this year, 2016 would have collected $25 million. We've gone up by 40% in the last 7 years. That's far outpacing inflation, and yet we're missing out on those funds. So it's hard to predict exactly how much it's going to collect with inflation or with additional tourism. If I were to try to do the math, say 40% every 10 years, it'd double. But $700 million would probably leverage between $900 million from the state and $1 billion out of the state for those competitive pots.
And that's over, the time that you would receive the money is over 20 years.
Over 20 years, unescalated, I think is the term I
Right.
would use.
Did you ever think about doing like half the time, like 1% for 10 years?
So in 2016, we put a measure to the voters. It failed to get 2/3. It yet received 66.3% support. And we put that on the ballot for a 9-year period. There's good and bad. What happens when you take away time is you take away projects, investments that people would have wanted to see on that transportation investment plan. But then you get people confidence that, well, it's only for 9 years, let's get a few things done. Either one still needs 2/3. The common theory is make sure there's something on the list that as somebody's looking down to vote, they find something. And taking away things might take away that voter's interest.
And did you ever, I mean, people like to see, did you ever consider cutting back, expenses at all? And
Cutting back
I mean,
projects.
well, what percentage of these funds would go towards the actual projects and what percentage would go towards administrative costs?
1% maximum under state law is allowable to go to administrative costs. 99% then goes for transportation improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it. With that, we're going to move on, and I'm going to backpedal because I got in such a hurry to do the presentations that I skipped our city manager's report. So City Manager Kimball, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me get to my notes here. And I have a few things to report tonight. From organizational standpoint, all departments are working on a budget, and the 2024 and 2025 budget. And if you see everybody so stressed out, and that's because there's a budget that all departments are working on, and has been a priority for departments. And then we wanted to make sure that the council goals are have alignment with this year's budget. So more to come on that. And city staff also embarked on a plan for our city's 60-year birthday celebration, which is going to be in July of this year. Park Recreation Manager Kirk Carmichael had graciously took on to manage some of the events, and then I'm sure with his leadership, we'll have a lot of excitement to look forward to. Also on the BESS, related to the BESS project, the safety study has been released, and city staff and along with the consultant are reviewing that safety study at this point. This week we have been, or rather since last week, and the city staff has been having several business-related interactions with our business community, something regarding noise, downtown noise complaints, and we have a mobile vendor issues, and then we'll have EV charger situations. And I just want to let the city council and then the public and know that we are working on them. We hear your concerns, and we're working on them, and give us some time because we do have budgets, something like that we need to work on as well. I had a meeting with the Central Coast Community Energy Commission last week, and I learned that City of Morro Bay and City of San Luis Obispo, we share a joint seat on this regional commission. It's every 2-year rotation. Last rotation, City of Morro Bay give up our turn. So slow right now, the City of Slow's rotation, and by the end of this year, Morro Bay is going to be up for our rotation. There's 3 governing boards on that commission. There's 3 boards rather, not 1 governing board, 1 operation board, and 1 citizen advisory committee on that board. So I will, when the time comes, I'll bring before City Council for your consideration. And then, as far as upcoming meeting goes, we are, as you know, as part of a budget development, the Public Works Department is working on a prioritization of capital improvement project, and then that information is forthcoming. And also, as you all know, that we are working on water and sewer rate study, and then so these two things are planning to be on the joint on the meeting agenda for joint meeting for PWAP and CFAC. We realize that the water rate study, as long as the prioritization of a capital improvement project, are not typically CFAC's duty. However, staff thought that would be appropriate for CFAC to join the discussion. I say that now, if City Council have a question about this and would like to discuss further, we can let me know, and then we can put on agenda for further discussion. At this point, the meeting is scheduled for April 14th. And with that, I have some good news to share with the public. The Public Works Department has been out there doing a lot of projects for the city, and then I've been remiss not able to share that with the public. And today we decided let's run a couple minutes a slideshow for the Public Works to showcase their recent accomplishments on road paving. With that, Public Works Director, you're going to take over, or?
Sure. Thank you, City Manager Kimball. And as Mr. Mendoza works his way up, I'll just say we tried something different over the past year. Rather than dump all of our roadway repair money into one big project that we might only help out a handful of streets, we squirreled away some of the money for smaller contracts where we can provide more targeted services to certain neighborhoods that are experiencing really bad roads. And so we've been able to do that through 3 different contracts, 3 different contractors. And are you going to present on all 3 or just one of those, Carlos?
Just one of them.
Okay, just one. So this will just represent a third of what we've been doing. And so typically road repairs are done out of engineering when it comes to using a contractor, but because these are smaller contracts, they're actually being run out of maintenance. We've had a lot of success with that, gotten a lot of good feedback this year. And I'll pass it over to Carlos Mendoza, our Maintenance Division Manager, who's been here all of 8 months?
7 months.
7 months. But he's just taking care of business on the road. So, Carlos, you could take it away.
Thank you, Director Kwolek, City Council, and members of the public. Appreciate the time. Is it on? Oh, get a little closer here. Thank you for the time to just go over a few of the projects that we have been doing out on the streets as far as the maintenance division. As was mentioned, the city allocated some funds for us to get some help on some city maintenance on streets and sidewalks, and there was $350,000 allocated this fiscal year for us to do this work. We actually were able to contract with 4 different contractors, 3 for streets and 1 for sidewalks, and that work has been completed as of last week. The pictures that you see on the screen are of the work that was done last week on several streets, including Laurel, Birch, Cuesta, and Greenwood. And you can see on the second slide here, or if you go back to the first slide, you can see the removal of the asphalt that was in pretty bad shape, and you can see the long and wide digouts of these streets. And the next set of slides will show you the preparation of repaving those streets, laying the base material, compacting it, and getting it ready for the paving machines to come in and do the paving. And that's what you see on the following pictures, is the paving crew and doing that work. The next few slides will show you the before and after of what the streets look like. These photos are of Greenwood, sorry. The before and after, another long section of Greenwood that had failed in several sections. About 5 or 6 residents there had these conditions on their streets for a long time. They were very happy seeing the work done out there. The next photo is of Laurel. Again, you know, we've got 5 or 6 different houses there where the work was being completed. The next slide should be of Cuesta, some small patchwork that was done there to help the water go where it's supposed to be going. And then I think the last slide is of Birch, and this is an interesting one. The picture on the left is just a little hole on the street, but actually it was a sinkhole that if you stuck your hand in there, it was probably about 2 feet deep. And so we put a road plate over that, which is the top picture on the right, and then the repair was made on the bottom there. So overall, with the contractors and the work that we've been doing the last few months, we've been able to work on about 15 different streets throughout the city, and also made sidewalk repairs on Kennedy, Shasta, and Harbor. And it's been some satisfying work. I think the community has been waiting for some of that work for a long time. In fact, when the contractors showed up with equipment, you know, some people came out of their balconies and started clapping and, you know, and saying hooray for the work. And we had some other neighbors that came out with some goodies and some sodas for the workers. So they were very happy to have that work done. Thank you again for the time, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Thank you to your crew also. I know on behalf of myself, the council members, and the community, we are very appreciative of all the efforts over the last 7 months since you've taken the helm, working with your city team and with Public Works. It's definitely, we see it around town, and keep it going. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. City Manager Kimball, anything else?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to move into public comment. I'm going to start with some speaker slips I have. And first up is going to be Linda Winters, followed by Natalie and John, followed by Casey Cordes.
Good evening. You're going to see that this speech is all been thrown to the wind because I thought this was going to be a really short meeting. Anyhow, I'm going to start out. I am Linda Winters, the 30-year resident here in Morro Bay. I'm here to say, first off, this is the shortest meeting council agenda that I'd ever seen in the history of my attending city council meetings. That was a lie. I really thought I'd be home in enough time to watch Wheel of Fortune. That's a lie. Speaking of fortunes, last Friday, March 22nd, at approximately 7 a.m., my neighbor texted me asking me if I'd seen the full rainbow. I was standing on my back porch watching a beautiful rainbow. The light from the rainbow was magical. The electricity in the air was magical. As I looked to the west, I saw Morro Rock light up because the end of the rainbow was at Morro Rock, and the other end was over Taco Bell. I can't win them all. So what does any self-respecting person do when there is such an incredible natural event? You go play the lottery. And for those of you who don't know, and I can't imagine there's any that don't know, the combined jackpots of Mega Millions and Powerball are now culminating at $2 billion. That's 2 billion with a B. Yeah, that's a lot of money, and I will remind each and every one of you that in Morro Bay that has a history of big jackpot winners right here. I already had my lottery tickets, and as you can see, I didn't win. But my dearly beloved husband always used to say, I know what you would do if you won the lottery. You'd give it all away. And I said, no, I wouldn't give it all away. I'd first take care of my family, and I come from a really big family, and I understand that when people win some of these jackpots, family members come out of the woodwork. But I would take care of my family, and I would also take care of the family that around me right here in this community. And what would I do? Well, I'd start out with, there would never be any more cases of food insecurity. And everyone would have safe shelters to live in, and making certain that everyone had enough income to survive on. And then I would work on the infrastructure of the city, making sure that we had adequate structures to house our community events, and making certain that the infrastructure of the city streets, sorry, Carlos, and parks were safe and well paved and maintained. Everyone would feel safe and secure in our beautiful community. That's what I would do. How about you?
Ready? Yep.
We don't do this often. Hello, I'm John,
Natalie Teichman.
John Novacic.
and we're the proud business owners of 781 Market Ave, Let's Get Tuned Sound and Yoga Studio, and we're just here to give everyone a business update. So good evening, Mayor Wixom and esteemed councilwomen. We are so excited to be here to share our gratitude for allowing us to serve our community and the visitors of Morro Bay. We are here to give you an update about our progress and things to come. Since opening 6 months ago, we have had substantial growth and an outpouring support from the community, surrounding communities, and the visitors to Morro Bay. Next slide, please.
So here are some data to share. The first graph shows how many visits we've had since we've opened the doors on September 9th up until the end of last month. And we're confident that this number will keep growing even in the slower months. Next slide, please. This graph shows that we serve a diverse community. We have a family night class, a free community class, and classes that are accessible to people of all ages and abilities. If you've never had a sound bath before, it does not involve water, and you don't need to stretch or even move. You can simply relax and let the sounds of specific instruments calm and relax your nervous system. Next slide, please. We're continuing to find more effective ways to better serve our community, and when we first opened, our plans were to attract people from all over the country, and that is what we're working towards. We want to bring in well-known names in the health and wellness industry to have workshops, events, and education that continue to help this community grow. We want to learn more about the slow season and how we can plan big events around these times to boost the hotel occupancy when it is needed. We are here to support the existing businesses around us, not be in competition with them. And from our research, on average, Morro Bay hotel rooms were only 56% full during the last fiscal year. We are connected to world thought leaders in the health and wellness industry, and we want to bring them and a new clientele to this beautiful location so we can help boost Morro Bay's TOT tax. And we've already confirmed one of those people, Richard Miller. He has an IRES program. It's very amazing. If you haven't heard of him, we're excited to have him at our studio and along with the clientele that he will bring. Another unique upcoming event that will attract hundreds of people to Morro Bay is the Tibetan Monks Sacred Arts Tour. A group of Tibetan monks are on a national tour to spread awareness and gather support for Tibetan refugees and to keep Tibetan traditions alive. They will be making a sacred mandala at our studio from April 8th to 11th that represents peace and compassion. So we hope that you all come see what it's all about, to learn about their culture, and perhaps find some more peace as well.
Additionally, we hear from people every day, tourists and locals alike, about how happy they are to see what's in the building, and that the city's had it become something so beautiful and not developed into another hotel, restaurant, or bar. They pop their heads in to share with excitement about how they look forward to increasing their trips to Morro Bay because we are here. We are a growing heartbeat here in Morro Bay and so happy to fill the gap of something so deeply needed here in our beautiful town. We invite you all to come down and see what we got going on. Hit it, Jug. Thank you.
Thank you. I need to go.
Hello, Mayor Wixom, council members. I'm here to talk about REACT Alliance and their efforts to oppose offshore wind development. I'm a huge fan of community organizers. I have been one. I have worked for nonprofits, and I know that work is really hard. Also, Morro Bay has unique character, commercial needs, natural beauty. We need to unite to defend those things. My worry is what happens when big money searches high and low for the local organizers that support their cause. We've seen over and over that wind energy has opponents in big oil and gas companies. They have sought out grassroots organizers, given them big checks in order to inflate the fears of offshore wind. If you Google search for offshore wind oil opposition, you'll find articles from Reuters, Washington Post, and a dozen others showing their research proving these investments. It's not a conspiracy theory. We've also seen that the most trusted environmental research organizations support offshore wind. We have some of the best oceanographic researchers in the world a stone's throw away at the Monterey Bay Aquarium's Research Institute. And they are leading the research that REACT Alliance claims will kill whales. The real scientists are showing us the way to a future with cleaner, safer oceans, and we're going to trust the fishermen and the oil companies' dubious sources that the whales will die as a result. As I've done so privately, I call on REACT Alliance to post their founding documents and their tax form 990 on their website so that those of us in the community can see how they operate and judge them on their actions and their words. It will be up to our community to decide if and how we want to support this energy project. There will likely be massive benefits for Morro Bay if we want to be a part of these historic steps to make the West Coast less reliant on energy sources that are proven to make the seas less hospitable for wildlife. What will not be up to our community is whether this project moves forward or not. That is not something we can control in this room. If we decide that we want no part in it, we will miss out on much needed funds and support from state and federal agencies. So to summarize, it's good that there are voices to represent the impact this project will have on our local fishermen. They, like the rest of the community, deserve a seat at the table when deciding how the future of our energy looks. But we should make sure that we have trustworthy sources for our scientific information, like the Monterey Bay Aquarium's Research Institute. We should be extremely wary of the power that big oil's money can buy. Let's get a seat at the table. Thank you very much.
Next up on a speaker slip is David Yo, followed by Wendy Dyer.
Good evening, Mayor Wixom and council members, guests, friends, citizens. On December 12, 2023, Secretary Jim Blecha, at the Port San Luis board meeting at Avila expressed at the city council board meeting his regret to the speakers, some of us here, that the board has no control over whether the wind turbine projects come or not. Their hands are tied. The only control board has is over development of the port and the miles off, the port and harbor. The board has no influence on the offshore area. Just recently, February 27th, in San Luis Obispo at a supervisors meeting, Chairperson Dawn Addis was quite surprised that the board had no control at all in this same topic. They just wanted to have a voice at the table. We may not have, as a community, much to say or much that we can do, but Morro Bay also has no say in the development of the coastline. But I only hope that you will be allowed, if necessary, to not just get involved with the spin. I have concerns mostly, I can't read, mostly about what's going to happen in our neighborhood. I know that eventually this process may go forward, and there will be ships out there that have never been sailed before because they haven't been built yet, and the crews aren't going to do very well. This morning there was a big accident that brought down a bridge. There are going to be a lot of accidents, a lot of fatalities. We the people at the urgent care center aren't going to be able to handle it. Somebody's going to say, we have to have a hospital, medical facility close by for when they have their accidents and they bring their folk here. Who's going to be responsible for that? Who's going to train those people? Who's going to house it? Who's going to be responsible for maintaining that? Not only that, but there are going to be accidents. There's going to be lightning and fires on the wind turbines, which hold about I think it's 80 gallons of oil that will be flammable, and it'll also leak. But when they have problems and accidents, if lightning hits, we're going to need probably a much larger fire department, and there's probably going to have to be a special brigade controlled. Wow, that does go fast. There is so much more I'd like to say. I thank you very much for your time, and I'll just have to come back next month. Thank you. Thank you.
Wendy Dyer.
Hi, my name is Wendy Dyer. I'm from Morro Bay, and I'm laughing just a little bit about the idea that there's big money behind REACT, since we just held a fundraiser with kids, and I couldn't even afford to go to it as a poor person. I'm certainly not taking any payouts from big oil companies. The passcode on my phone just died. Give me 1 second. The notion that REACT would accept funds from the oil and gas sector is not only baseless, but also ironically highlights a significant misunderstanding of their mission and values. Oil and gas interests are fundamentally opposed to the mission of REACT, making such an alliance not just unlikely, but also counterproductive. REACT upholds a strict policy against accepting financial contributions from any special interest groups, particularly those whose activities directly conflict with our mission. The accusation shows up just how dark and clueless people are. The oil and gas industry is the wind industry. REACT, sorry, I'm having phone problems. The oil and gas industry is the wind industry. REACT is thoroughly knowledgeable, grounded in truth through meticulous research. The more people continue to do their own research past this ridiculous stories like the ones mentioned above, the more they will be up in arms against offshore winds and its devastating impacts and the deceitful claim on having any sort of effect on climate change. I would like to add to that by saying that personally, apart from REACT, I am opposed to offshore wind for a number of reasons. I'm not interested in the way it's going to change the scope of our city. I'm not interested in the impacts that it's going to have on the fragile ecosystem in our waters. I am particularly not interested in the adverse impact it's going to have on our power bills. We know that we've all received huge rate increases. My electric bill was $380 for last month with the new add-ons. Once this technology comes out, because the infrastructure development costs are so high and the technology is so untested, the wind companies themselves have told us that their power is going to cost up to 7 to 9 times more than our current utility costs now. In a city where people are struggling to find housing, struggling to keep work, struggling to stay in a town that they love, the last thing we need is this untested technology raising our rates further. Thank you so much.
Waving, please, thank you. I have two more speaker slips. Kathleen McCollum and Barry Rands, please.
Hello, thank you for the time to speak. My name is Kathleen McCollum. I'm a resident of Cambria. I want to say that I am in complete support of REACT Alliance and their mission to be against the wind farms. I think that it is a huge danger to all the marine life, and I believe there's enough scientific evidence to back that up. And I also think that we should be conservative in protecting our oceans instead of making choices that could be absolutely catastrophic, and there is evidence to support that to be the case. And I also believe that there's not enough evidence that will actually fulfill the mission that they're saying that it will, as it will help climate change. It will also produce a huge amount of waste and trash, a gargantuous amount of trash from the installations that will have to be replaced on a regular basis. Thank you for the time to hear me.
Madam Mayor and City Council members, my name is Barry Rands, former associate engineer here at the city, now retired and residing in San Luis Obispo. I'd like to respond to some of the information you're getting about the offshore wind farms and and the impact on whales, marine environment. But I'm actually not an expert in wind energy or ocean ecology. My expertise is more with electric vehicles. I got interested in EVs over 10 years ago here in town when Rob Leivik had me supervise the installation of an EV charger in the public services parking lot. Once the charger was installed, I leased an EV for my commute, and I've been promoting EVs ever since. So thank you for public services. But there is some common ground shared by electric vehicles and wind turbines that I understand pretty well, and it's this. There's a very sophisticated disinformation campaign against both EVs and wind power that is energetically supported and funded by fossil fuel interests. Makes sense. When you make billions selling fuels that power cars and natural gas power plants, you can afford a few million here and there to spread misinformation about EVs and wind turbines. The Tribune recently published a well-researched article refuting some of that misinformation related to wind power, and I hope you had a chance to read it. And the current edition of the Sierra Club magazine has a piece uncovering the connection between these misinformation campaigns and the climate-denying think tanks and fossil fuel financing. Jason Mark, the Sierra Club magazine's editor-in-chief, said, "For more than a decade, climate deniers and fossil fuel interests have quietly cultivated ties with local activists, equipping them with talking points, legal muscle, model ordinances, and other tools to try to subvert renewable energy adoption." So keep your head about you, and keep in mind that most of those hyped up and overwrought arguments against renewable energy projects are often little more than an ill wind that blows nobody any good. Those of us who want to protect our coastal environment, our oceans, and our planet will often have differing opinions on what is the best path forward. But let's keep in mind that the fossil fuel industry is no friend of the environment and will do all it can to exploit our differences to slow down the transition to clean energy. You've heard from REACT, and I hope you'll offer equal time to the Sierra Club or another local environmental agency to make a presentation on wind energy. You might find that it blows in a different direction. And as I finish, I'd like to announce an educational event that I'll be speaking at in the Morro Bay Library on Saturday, April 6th, from 10 to noon. And it's on the screen there. There will be presentations on electrifying the home and garage, and will include discussions of the concerns about the environmental impact of electric vehicles and batteries. Thank you.
Have one more speaker slip after that. I'm moving into the group speaker slip I have. So June McIver. After that, the rest of the speaker slips will wait till after the group I have. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is June McIver. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, as I could not stay silent while people continue to spread misinformation about renewable energy. On March 14th, the Tribune already debunked the claims of REACT that offshore wind site surveys will harm marine life as, quote, mostly false and based on inaccurate information, unquote. Their remarks today is more of the same. And I brought copies of the Tribune article for all of you and for staff so that make sure that you have a chance to read it. The warming of the oceans already underway due to greenhouse gas emissions will have far greater negative impact on sea life than these projects can or will. It is essential that the offshore wind projects go forward to combat ocean acidification, rising sea temperatures, and species displacement caused by burning fossil fuels. Done right, this project presents local communities with a wonderful opportunity to increase recreation and tourism and job creation, as well as economic development. In addition, these projects, coupled with our region's other clean energy sources and our community's forward-looking approach to sustainability, create a significant opportunity for our region to become a hub for conservation, economic activity, and climate innovation. No project of the scale necessary to generate an impactful amount of clean energy is without significant impacts to our environment, our community culture, and our infrastructure. It is important to be thoughtful and use good, ever-developing science in the development of projects like these. With where we are now at the very beginning of a long process, all the evidence so far is that the wind companies and the state of California are doing just that, taking a hard, thoughtful approach. I urge the city of Morro Bay to also be thoughtful and deliberate, to engage in the process, and to not prejudge the work still to come. Thank you very much.
The next three speaker slips, Mandy Davis, followed by Paul Gallo, followed by Betty Wenholtz.
Boy, a little bit of comic relief was really nice tonight. I appreciated it. I like a good giggle. Okay, you guys, my name is Mandy Davis, and I'm president of REACT Alliance. And REACT Alliance was formed about 5 months ago, and we are a nonprofit corporation, and I'm going to read you our mission. Forgot my glasses. It's to protect California's central coast from the destructive impacts of offshore wind energy development. We seek to educate the public, advocate for informed decision-making, mobilize the community, collaborate with governing officials, and pursue legal action when necessary. So I would like to read this quote to you because it is indicative of why REACT is doing what they're doing. This says, there is a visceral and physical relationship to our coastline which inspires locals to protect its uniqueness, preserve its abundance, and assure that future generations can appreciate and thrive in this paradise we call home. Next. That's a really good description of how we all feel about this place. So we are going to be making a presentation about the proposed offshore wind project here, about 20 miles west of San Simeon. And we're going to address the hidden impacts to our environment, economy, and culture. And I will assure you that every single slide and all of the data that we present to you is peer-reviewed, and it is information that you can, quote unquote, fact check all you want. Next. Okay, so in June of this last year, BOEM finalized 5 different leases off the coast of California. 3 of them were here, like I said, about 20 miles west of San Simeon. And then there are another 2 up in the Humboldt area. Morro Bay offshore wind area is by far the largest. It is 376 square miles, split between the 3 lessees. And then the Humboldt area is considerably smaller. But this is only the beginning. The amount of sea space they want to utilize going into the future is huge. Next. So to meet the goals of AB 525, the California Energy Commission, the CEC, has basically proposed, and they call it suitable sea space, and we will definitely not particularly agree with that, sea space totaling over 4,000 square miles, 4,483 square miles to be exact. Most of that area is in Northern California, and that comprises well over 60% of some of the, does that mean I'm done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, next.
Hello, my name is Paul Gallo. I'm a member of REACT. Could you please advance to the slide that shows the whale migration? There's been worldwide concern about the impact that offshore wind farms has on whales, the largest mammal species in the ocean. It begins with HID site surveys, which is acoustic testing, and continues with the myriad of adverse effects to whales that wind farms create. Here on the Central Coast, we have front row seats to the California gray whale migration, one of the largest, longest migrations of any known mammal. In fact, the visit of the renegade juvenile whale to our bay recently reminds us how important our coastline is to this species. Of course, we can't forget about the numerous other mammal species who call our waters home. Offshore wind development off our coast will bring adverse effects to all mammal groups that cannot be mitigated. Please advance. REACT has been following the development and operation of wind farm projects off the East Coast. And the research is alarming when it comes to the impacts on marine life. This should be of grave concern to us here. There has been debate on whether the 85 beachings off New York and New Jersey between 2022 and 2023 were in fact related to acoustic testing. This graph demonstrates a direct connection to the increased whale deaths and to the number of survey vessels present. This nexus is hard to dispute. Gordon, please advance. The graph documented 85 whales that washed up on beaches. We must wonder how many other whales died offshore and did not wash up. I want to also call your attention to a clear conflict of interest that was discovered at a company, Atlantic Marine Conservation Society, performed various limited necropsies on only a few of the beach whales on the East Coast. They denied a connection between HRG surveying and whale deaths. It has been discovered that the board of the directors of this company all have vested interest in wind energy companies or will benefit from the construction of wind energy facilities. Please advance. In addition to whales who deserve the utmost protection, we should not ignore what impact HRG surveying and offshore wind farms will have on all our marine species. We have ample well-searched data on the REACT website for you to consider. Presented here is a brief summary of how destructive HRG site surveying is to marine life. You can see the damages related to specific decibel levels, which lead often to mortality. Also, please keep in mind that exposure to sounds above 120 decibels can cause immediate and severe damage, such as pain or ruptured eardrums in humans. Okay, and thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Betty Winholtz, and I think if you're on slide 11, that's where I want to be. It's about birds. Okay, thank you. This quote up here is from Joel Merriman, who's a leader of the American Bird Conservancy, And this was back in 2021. So 3 years ago, they estimated that there were 681,000 birds that were killed annually by wind turbines, and 2,000 of those were eagles. Next, please. Okay, according to the maps that you saw previously, the Morro Bay Wind Energy Area is located directly in the Pacific Flyway, which all of you probably know because we have our annual bird festival here. We know that some of those species come here to winter over in the winter to refeed and then go back north. You need to know that the tips of 6 of these turbines are 650 feet long, and they can speed up to 170 miles per hour. And not all birds are soaring birds, but soaring birds such as albatross, gulls, pelicans, shearwaters, and terns are the ones that are at the high risk. Next, please. And so according to the 2016 study by BOEM, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, in their own report, the 4 kinds of injuries or bad things that happen are collision with the windmills, displacement, they can't go through anymore, night migration, because they can't see what's going on, and some of the gulls, in particular the black-back gulls, they go offshore over 100 miles just to feed their chicks. So with our windmills being at only 20 miles off, we know that that will be a danger for them. Next, please. There's an organization in Great Britain that formed back in 2012. It's called Stop These Things. And they have followers from all around the world. And they documented and showed that the puffin population in Great Britain went to become an endangered species because of the windmills that surround the islands of Great Britain. Next, please. So you would think Audubon would be all over this, right? It's about birds. So last September 2023 in Sacramento, there was a congressional hearing up in Sacramento regarding offshore wind. The president of Audubon stated that they got $12.5 million from the wind industry to do surveys, and what they concluded from their surveys was, oh, the birds will go around the windmills. Now, if you believe that, DNA for thousands of years are in these birds, and they have decided where their flyway is. Birds do not go around obstacles. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Nicole Dorfman, followed by Sherry Hafer, Andrea Luker.
Hi there, Nicole Dorfman. I just want to clarify something that Betty said. It wasn't the president of Audubon. It was actually the director of the Clean Energy Initiative for the National Audubon Society, a man named Gary George, who made this comment. And you know, one thing that I learned about Gary George was that he was recently promoted to chairman of the board for Renewable Energy Wildlife Institute, which happens to be funded by numerous energy corporations, many who profit from offshore wind energy, such as Ørsted, which is the biggest name in offshore wind development. And by the way, for all those people claiming that that we're the ones who are being funded by oil and gas, guess what? Ørsted used to be named Danish Oil and Gas Company, the largest energy company in Denmark. Okay, next slide, please. So Audubon isn't the only company that I believe has been corrupted into waging a campaign of greenwashing on the unsuspecting people. I've donated to Audubon for many years, and many of these environmental companies, and it was so confusing. Why are they supporting this industry, which to me seems very harmful to the environment, just like the Atlantic Marine Conservation Society. Not only did 12 of the 16 members have conflicts, but one of them is actually the Strategic Environmental Affairs Manager for Equinor Wind. So, I mean, that's a direct conflict of interest there. You know, that's the one way that corporations that I've found are corrupted is through large donations. Another way is through the boards. So somebody else mentioned the Sierra Club, how they just this month came out with this, you know, missive about all the people like myself who are opposed to this agenda of putting this massive wind factories in the ocean, the Sierra Club. Well, let me tell you something. The Sierra Club has been corrupted by hundreds of millions of dollars from industry players. For example, they have received tens of millions of dollars from the Sea Change Foundation based in California to specifically promote climate mitigation and clean energy initiatives. They've also received over $100 million from Michael Bloomberg's family foundation. Both Bloomberg and the Simons, who run Sea Change Foundation, are also involved with and profit from renewable energy such as research and construction of offshore wind. So, and I can go on. All of these logos here that you see in front of you, they all have conflicts of interest and have accepted millions of dollars from industries that profit off of wind energy. So I'm tired of this notion that we're accepting gas and oil money. They are the gas and oil money, folks. That's the truth. Thank you.
Mandy's glasses. Hi, I'm Sherry Hafer. I'm a director of REACT Alliance and wife of a commercial fisherman, Tom Hafer, who's president of the Morro Bay Commercial Fishermen's Organization. I'm here to discuss impacts from offshore wind development on our fisheries and fishermen. So there will be loss of hundreds of miles of fishing grounds. Like we said earlier, over 4,000 square miles is what they're looking at. From here to Japan is 4,000 miles, just so you know. There is too high of a risk of gear entanglement and collision to allow fishing inside the wind farms. Impacted historical fisheries in the Morro Bay wind energy area are deepwater groundfish, black cod, albacore, and swordfish. And along the cable routes are Dungeness crab, salmon, rockfish, halibut, squid, and spot prawn fisheries. Other issues besides displacing fishermen from fishing grounds will be an increase in navigation hazards, loss of fishing opportunity, increased ship traffic, increased competition for dock and fuel space, and increased uncertainty in the industry as a whole. Next slide. This is what a radar screen looks like inside a wind and around a wind farm. The wind turbines cause multiple artifacts on the screen, so it is impossible to distinguish if there is a vessel ahead. This will increase the chances of vision collisions, especially in the fog or at night. It will also impact aviation and military maneuvers. Next slide. The Morro Bay Wind Energy is inside Essential Fish Habitat, or EFH. The EFH is in the gray, and the wind energy area is outlined in small black boxes in a triangular shape. The EFH is protected because it contains ancient sea coral reefs important to deep water groundfish survival. The concern is the offshore wind mooring chains that have several hundred feet of extra line to adjust for wave height will scour the bottom, clear-cutting the seafloor and destroying this important habitat. Next slide. Studies show that wind farms greater than 80 turbines will significantly block wind and diminish upwellings up to 15%. The Morro Bay wind energy area will have at least 200 turbines. Upwellings are the key driver of the health of the marine life along our coast, and thus the productivity of our fisheries. Upwellings occur when wind pushes surface water off, causing cold, nutrient-rich water to come up. Also, as a consequence of blocking the wind, there will be an increase in surface water temperature. Next slide, please. The electric cables bring power to shore will emit electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, especially the large export cables that can carry up to 1,200 megawatts of current. Studies show that eggs of lobster and crab exposed to EMF become deformed, developing smaller and having eye and tail deformities.
Thank you, Sherry.
All right.
We're ready for the next slide. I'm Andrea Luker. I was your former city manager. Tonight, I found out that I'm taking big checks from Big Oil. Pretty amazing. poppycock. Anyway, I'm going to start. We can all see the turbines that are going to be above the water, but what we don't see are the miles and miles of cables that are going to be below the water. The cables bring the electricity from the turbines in all the way into inshore. The cables are not only strung between all the turbines, but they're also buried when coming onshore. Cable failure, they're finding out, is fairly common in Europe. Approximately 90 cables have failed in the past 7 years, and there's also a number of issues with malfunctioning. Next slide, please. This is a great slide. It gives you an idea of how the wind turbines areas are set up. The turbines, including the blades, will tower almost 1,000 feet. So just to give you an idea, that's almost twice as tall as Morro Rock, or a different comparison is it's about 300 feet less than the towers at the Golden Gate Bridge. So a good comparison there. As shown in this diagram, the cables span between each turbine and then to large substations, where then the cables are buried that go to the near shore to land. Next slide, please. This picture is hard to figure out what it really looks like, but what's happening here is they're jetting the ocean floor, basically using pressurized water to create a trench to bury the cables that go from the substation to the land. This work causes, as you can see, a huge plume of sediment that buries and damages spawning and breeding grounds for ocean organisms. And also the process causes resuspension of heavy metals and other contaminants, further polluting the water. Next slide, please. I was going to do a quiz, but this is actually a slide of Northern California. But what's important about this slide is there a similar proposed plan for our area, which includes miles of additional subsea or buried cables several miles offshore. For those unfamiliar with the ocean bottom topography, there are canyons and seamounts. It's just not a flat plain of sand, which means that burying cables will be quite disruptive in many areas. Next slide, please. Within the state waters, which generally are up to 3 miles offshore, there are currently in place a number of protected areas: marine protected areas, environmental sensitive habitat areas, and national marine sanctuaries. These areas were set up for the protection of many species that reside within the area, and also topography and cultural resources. While many activities are not allowed in these areas, such as many fishing activities and dredging, the offshore wind companies will be routing their electric cables through these areas, dredging and destroying as they go through these, I like to call it, formally protected areas. Thank you.
Last two speakers are David Raychart and Melissa Beach.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Next slide, please. So I'm a resident of Avila Beach, and I'm here today to talk about all the infrastructure that's needed to build out these proposed projects. So to start, we need to look at these offshore substations. And the substations, they take the power and they distribute up and down the coast. These power stations also utilize federally banned once-through cooling. So we're talking about something that has been taken off the table for other sources of energy, and now we're giving a green light for the wind industry. This kills fish larvae. It displaces. There's many reasons why this is federally banned. Next slide, please. These boats are massive. They need to be manufactured. These are not going to be made in the United States. It's going to be foreign-made products. There's only one boat of this size that's actually been made in the United States, and it hasn't been put in place. This is a huge eyesore. Please imagine our coastline with 300 feet boats on it. Next slide, please. There's going to be a large build-out of our infrastructure that's required. They're proposing some small facilities to deal with the observation, and then the large facilities to deal with installation and longer-term maintenance. Next slide, please. So here in Morro Bay, they're proposing taking out part of the T-pier that currently the U.S. Coast Guard is utilizing, and then we're going to be using that for observation of the wind turbines. That's taking away, a beautiful-looking pier from our tourism. I don't think that anyone wants to look at large boats and have this large traffic. So think about the effects that's going to have on our tourism, having large boats coming in and out of our harbor here. Next slide, please. This has been taken off the table, but they are proposing a similar type of massive structure put out outside Diablo Canyon now. This particular one would just be moved around the corner to Diablo, also just a massive amount of carbon and CO2 that they're worried about being put into this infrastructure here. This is also has a large cost to it. $6 billion is an outrageous amount of money where the state's running out of money currently. Next slide, please. So this is where it really hits the road. You know, we're talking about an energy cost of $175 a megawatt hour. That's compared to $40 a megawatt hour, our current costs. You know, that's a huge increase. So we're looking at the ratepayers increase, the businesses are going to leave town. Next slide, please. And it's just going to keep driving costs up. So if you look at what New York just signed to meet their deadlines is $175 a megawatt hour, and that's for a fixed into the ground proven technology. We have no idea what these floating turbines are going to cost. We do know that the fixed ones are outrageous, and it's going to drive more Californians out of California. It's going to put businesses out of business, and I'm just here to pose that and to take that into consideration. Thank you so much for your time.
Next slide, please. Wind energy is not green. If you've been convinced that it is, you've been what they call greenwashed. By 2050, an estimated 2.2 million tons of blade waste will accumulate, reaching 43 million tons globally. Industrial ports and the operation of large vessels significantly contribute to carbon emissions. Operations pose many risks of oil spills. Failure in transmission cables can result in the leakage of electromagnetic fields, not a big deal. The sulfur hexafluoride in gas used is one of the most potent greenhouse gases known. Service operation vessels and wind turbines generate continuous noise pollutions. Next slide. Offshore wind is inefficient and unreliable. The wind developers assume that several of these turbines will catch on fire and burn down. Turbines undergo routine maintenance shutdowns with a small lifespan of 20 years max and a yearly performance degradation of 4.5%. That is the best case. Do you know what just happened in Scotland is the 5 offshore wind turbines that they have, which is Equinor, by the way, just had to be shut down and towed to shore for heavy maintenance after only 6 years. Turbines must cease operation in high wind conditions. Floating turbines shut down when faced with swells as small as 10 feet. The Department of Defense mandates a 600-hour annual shutdown of turbines. Regardless, I mean, if you can't tell how horrible this is in all of the different ways that we've stated, one of the most important things to understand is that because wind is intermittent and unreliable, it only supplies energy around 40% of the time, which means the grid needs fossil fuel generators ready to supply 100% of electricity needs. These projects will not replace a single fossil fuel power plant, yet these projects affecting global warming is their reasoning to install them. It's their only excuse. Global warming is what is supposed to be worth the irreversible significant damage it will cause. Next slide. BOEM themselves anticipate that this proposed action will have no measurable influence on climate change. Next slide. Overall, it is anticipated that there would be no collective impact on global warming as a result of offshore wind, including their proposed action. So what is the purpose of these projects other than filling other foreign countries' pockets and those who are being paid out to make these projects possible? If we continue being blind to what is truly happening, that is what will happen here in our own backyard to our home. Those behind these wind projects will get richer while our energy costs skyrocket. Our community is industrialized. Many community members lose their careers and livelihood, and our oceans are literally decimated. This project is not a done deal, and we need to continue working together to stop it. Next slide. We are React Alliance. We are a local nonprofit. If anyone wants to reach out to connect or support our cause, our website is reactalliance.org. Council members, we are happy to answer any of your questions, and I have some material for you that I would love to hand out. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 3 speaker slips, and I'm not taking any more speaker slips. It'll be first come, first serve after that. Don Maruska, followed by Laura Fiedler.
If I could have the slide up for my session. So you might be relieved that I'm not going to talk with you about any stressful event or options or whatever. In fact, I'm going to talk with you about a very positive opportunity for the community, and I wanted to be certain that people here in Morro Bay know about it. We're having a Climate Solutions Community Forum. It's about what people can do themselves in their own lives and activities to make a dent on climate change. So it's very positive. I'll be sharing, I went as a special guest on an expedition to Antarctica. I'll be sharing what I learned from that and why actions are so critical about climate change. But then we're going to have a series of presenters from their own experiences talking about key things. For example, we'll have Ian and Alicia Denchazi, who are going to talk about their low cost, low impact, off-grid home that they've built in Atascadero, which we had a group of climate fellows from Cal Poly go there. They were excited about it because for the first time, they thought there might be a path for them to actually have a home after graduation in San Luis Obispo County, because you can think and work in small, compact ways. We're also going to have Matt and Jean from MJ Family Farms talking about regenerative agriculture. Agriculture has tremendous potential to actually serve as a sink, capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and converting it into living carbon in the soil and doing a lot for our environment. Unfortunately, most of commercial agriculture is actually creating extensive greenhouse gases. About 17 to 20% of all the greenhouse gases are created by agriculture. It doesn't have to be that way. It wasn't that way the way nature created it. And we're having innovative farmers in our own community figuring out how to do this right. And I think you'll be excited to hear their story. We're also going to have climate fellows from Cal Poly and Cuesta. These are folks that have gone through an extensive program of learning how to help people in the community develop and apply techniques in their own home to save money, to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, so a win-win. It's going to be very positive. It'll be from 2 to 4 p.m. Saturday, April 6th. We have 6 community sponsors. It'll be at the meeting room at St. Benedict's Episcopal Church in Los Osos. But we have a wide range of groups that are all coming together to provide to the community very positive, powerful things that can be done. And I hope that some of the energy that's being exercised here in the community back and forth on a variety of topics will go to what people can do right now in their own homes and their own activities. We need big things, but we also need to get started right now. And actually the research shows that over the next decade, the most impactful things we can do to address climate change are the things we do ourselves, because we have the power to do that on our own, and we now have resources to help and support us in doing it. Hope you'll come out on April 6th. Love to see you there. It's free. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor Wixom, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. My name is Laura Fiedler, and I'm the California Community Affairs Director for Equinor, based here locally. Equinor has the westernmost lease in the Morro Bay wind energy area, about 60 miles from Morro Bay here. Our proposed project is named Atlas. It has the capacity for up to 2 gigawatts of reliable, renewable power, enough to power 1.7 million Californian homes once complete. We believe that unlocking the power of offshore wind is essential to achieve California's 100% renewable energy by 2045 goal and to ensure energy reliability. We're still really early in the project development cycle. There's a lot of information and decisions still to be made. That's why this engagement is important. Right now, we're planning for surveying activity, which is a required part of our lease through the federal government. As there's no specific item on today's agenda related to offshore wind, I'm just here simply to offer to follow up with any of you on the council or your staff or members of the public. If there's any questions or concerns or additional information I can provide, I have my business cards here with me, and I can also be reached on our website at atlaswind.com or by emailing us at atlas@equinor.com. And as the representative for Equinor here, my goal is just to engage and support our community as a long-term partner. Thank you, and I look forward to working with the council, with the staff, and with members of the community on unlocking the potential for offshore wind development here on the Central Coast.
I have one speaker slip left, Ted Key. And after that, public comment is open to everyone.
Good evening, and thank you, Morro Bay Council. I'm representing myself. I live in Cambria. While I stand behind the REACT group waving the flag, I participated in the California Energy Commission meeting a couple of weeks ago, and one of the dockets that was included to the CEC was presented by the Chumash, the Northern Chumash tribe, San Luis Obispo County and region. I would like to read their letter, please, to you from them to the California Energy Commission, dated March 22nd, 2024. I'm writing on behalf of the Northern Chumash tribe, San Luis Obispo County and region. We are a pre-contact ancestral California native tribe. Our unceded waters and land will be severely impacted by the proposed wind farm that will be located offshore of our ancestral coast. At this juncture, we haven't found a way to support this proposed project. Tribal members have attended 30+ OSW working group sessions, tribal governmental OSW roundtables, OSW public events, and tribal events. We've had discussions and meetings with numerous state agencies and with offshore wind companies. We have read countless reports and documents. Along with other tribes, we have asked numerous questions of which there have been few answers. We have often been told of data gaps, outdated research, or no research on almost all aspects of this proposed offshore wind project. We have asked for a cradle-to-grave analysis of the environmental impacts of this proposed project, but the information has not been provided. Items of concern include, but are not limited to, this is an experimental project. Wind companies have no experience in building deep water as found offshore of our coast. There is no data that this proposed project will perform well or at all. We have not seen that all types of renewable energy have been thoroughly considered. There is no assurance or data proving that this project will provide adequate or reasonably priced energy for California. There is no data to prove that there will not be harmful impacts to the fragile ecosystems located in ocean waters. There is no empirical data that assures us that marine life will not be harmed. There has been no consideration or research that offshore power transmission cables and onshore infrastructure such as ports, substations, and transmission lines won't destroy irreplaceable cultural resources, ceremonial sites, burial sites, and other cultural landscapes or native habitats for plants and animals. There has been no clear picture of how this proposed project will impact communities such as Morro Bay or Avila Beach. We understand climate change will continue to do all we can to combat climate crisis, but this massive proposed experimental project has moved too fast with too many unanswered questions. Thank you. Mona Olivis Tucker, Chair, Northern Chumash Tribe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Public comment is open for items not on the agenda.
Hi, my name is Victoria Young. I attend Los Osos Middle School, and I'm going to be reading a quote from Dr. Miles Bidwell, an economist from Columbia University. The wind farms and all the environmental damage from building them may have no offsetting benefits at all. Studies in Ireland, the Netherlands, Colorado, and Texas have found that adding wind farms causes the existing fossil plants to produce more CO2, and that as the amount of wind farms increasing, the amount of CO2 becomes more than it would be, and than it would have been without any wind farms. The addition of wind farms disrupts the efficient process of current production of electricity. Wind farms produces electricity that is unpredictably intermittent, and this is what makes wind farms an inferior resource of electricity. No one controls how much electricity a windmill produces. The amount of produced depends on the varies with strengths of the wind. In Europe, some of the most efficient new combined cycle plants have been removed because of the frequent changes in output and the damages that were caused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Margaret Carmen, Morro Bay residents, and I'd like to call to your attention the card you were given. When you're at home in your own chair, relaxed, supporting your back, in your own good beverage, take a little time to watch some of these documentaries. There's QR codes on the back because we've thrown a lot of information at you, and this way you can just be sitting there soaking it in a different manner. And I want you to think about a seesaw, because that was wonderful what you just read. Thank you. When we talk about renewable energy, it's like, it's not renewable when there's so many bad things that can happen in the CO2 and everything we've just said. But remember, this is wind and this is what's happening. Okay. And, you know, I've listened for so long, I can't even remember what else I was going to say, but I really appreciate all of your time listening, because we are so passionate and we are not being funded by gas and oil. We are doing it out of our own hearts, time, and energy. Thank you.
City Council members, staff, and community members. I'm Michelle Lester Catteray. I'm a 20-year resident of Morro Bay and a member of the Reach Alliance. I'm going to read a statement I agree with from the Oregon organization Protect the Coast, submitted to this California Energy Commission. The potential economical impact associated with offshore wind turbine project constructed off the coast of Oregon are immense and severely understudied. It is essential that the BOEM conduct extremely thorough and wide research studies of the impacts of these projects, including the cumulative impacts. These studies should also assess the cradle-to-grave impact of producing wind turbines and operating these offshore wind energy facilities. When accounting for greenhouse gas emissions, impacts to wildlife species, and perhaps most especially the impact of mining the materials and fuels necessary to build and operate these wind turbine facilities, the harm of these offshore wind energy projects are significant and global. We oppose these projects, and alongside other local community members, tribes, fishermen, and environmentalists, we oppose them completely. Global warming is a serious crisis, but further investment in government subsidies of massive industrial projects, which are extremely destructive to the natural environment, is not the proper path forward. Instead, communities and governments should be working to relocalize and scale down our consumption of natural resources and build a way of life that does not require endless growth. This is the only true path to sustainability. Anything else is self-delusional. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Terry Simons. As is my custom, I'd like to come late in the items not on the agenda discussion. It occurs to me tonight this was a rather major presentation for an item not on the agenda, and I wonder why. It appears that members of the pro-wind development were here. Certainly members of the anti-wind development were here. Why was this not an agendized item? Just a philosophical question. Moving quickly to another topic, there was a discussion earlier about the 0.5% tax increase, sales tax increase. Unfortunately, the proponent from the county's office, I think he left, I don't know. He left before I could get a chance to ask the question that I had, and my question was, I couldn't tell from his charts of the percentage of the dollars that Morro Bay sales tax would add to that revenue stream, what percentage of that would we get back for our projects? And I hope that your auspices with that agency will allow you to ask that question and get some actual tangible results so that we can either get the citizens of Morro Bay to support it wholeheartedly or reluctantly. I did have another item in my mental agenda, but all the discussion with the offshore wind, I think is misplaced. I recognize, as I'm sure most of the people here that are familiar with government recognize, that you really have no decision-making authority with the wind project because it's in federal lands, and less authority since it seems like somebody thinks the state has some stake or some say in it. But having just returned from Washington, D.C., I'm sure you understand the complexities and the enormity of the federal government. My experience tells me that in a room somewhere, 8 or 10 people are going to get together and they are going to decide what's going to happen, as they have already decided when they initialized this lease program. That's where we need to have somebody speaking on our behalf. We can talk to ourselves ad infinitum, but the reality is we need to make sure our Washington, D.C. paid consultant expresses our concerns to those few people that work for BOEM and the legislators that will make the final decisions on funding BOEM so that we actually get heard. Other than that, it's fun to see all these folks getting excited about it, but we need to get this done. Thank you.
Good evening, friends and neighbors. 37% of registered voters in our town did not vote in the primary. The individual that shared this statistic at the last regular meeting seemed to think this number was pretty good. Personally, I find it to be an awful statistic. It would mean that about 1/3 of our town could not be bothered to take a few minutes out of their day to vote on a proposition, a presidential candidate, or various county-level elected positions. While disappointing, I'm not really surprised by this number. At another meeting, an individual pointed out that our standard options for national leadership are fairly dismal. We've either got Genocide Joe or Mr. I could shoot somebody and still get elected. Either one a portent of bad times for us all. Now, maybe those at the top can expect a temporary continuation of their comfort and authority, but unless serious changes are made, nothing that now is shall remain untouched by the epical changes currently shaping up across the world. Time and again, our institutions have failed us. Time and again, our so-called leaders have promised us a better life, then failed to deliver. Some say it is because we have the wrong leaders or that our leaders are weak. But if there's one thing that I know for sure, it is this. No one with authority can ever be trusted, whether because power corrupts or because no person has the capacity to rule rightly, justly, and fairly. 39%. That is a number that I found in this clipping from the December 2022 edition of Morro Bay Life. That is 2% more than the percent of voters that participated in the primary in our town. Unfortunately, 39% is the number of voters that actually voted in the 2022 election. 61% of voters knew that no matter who they voted for, no one was going to save them. Let us be fair. Instead of focusing on the 61% that did not vote, let us talk about the 39% that did. I shall read a quote here. Quote, I attribute the win, should the vote hold, to the community concerns about the direction the current leadership is taking our community. We're at a crossroads. Will we stay a beachside community, or will we become an industrial city? Many in the community I spoke with feel there's been a lack of transparency on many issues, i.e. sewer cost, wind energy, battery storage, land use issues. Congratulations, throw the proles a bone and they quit their yapping. I don't think it's working so well, though.
Anyone else for public comment on items not on the agenda? AGP, do we have anyone in the queue?
Thank you, Mayor Wixom. Currently, I see one raised hand in the queue. Susan, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Susan, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just want to tell you that my name is Susan, and I recently retired from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I've been in charge of Earth Science Communications and NASA's Climate Communications for many years, and I am a lifelong environmentalist who is very knowledgeable about climate. And I'm deeply concerned about a lot of this misinformation being presented by the REACT Alliance. On their website, they list 23 purported impacts from offshore wind, but they completely ignore the impacts of commercial fishing on marine species, on boat strikes, and the impacts of fossil fuels. And I would first like to address their claim about increased ocean surface temperatures. I have looked into this. Although there is a small rise in atmospheric temperature below wind farms, it is much smaller than the natural fluctuations that occur from year to year in the ocean. The ocean absorbs about 90% of the excess heat generated by our greenhouse gas emissions. Ocean heat is rising at unprecedented levels. In 2023, the heat content in the upper 6,500 feet of the global ocean, now hold on for a minute, I'm going to give you some numbers, was 286 zettajoules, and I will explain that in a minute. And that was relative to a 30-year period between about 1980 and 2010. This was 15 zettajoules higher than 2022. The entire globe consumes about a half a zettajoule of energy to fuel entire economies. 15 extra zettajoules between 2022 and 2023 is enough energy to boil 2.3 billion Olympic-sized swimming pools. This is what our greenhouse gas emissions are doing to the oceans. REACT also claims that marine ecosystems and inhabitants will be impacted by offshore wind, but they completely ignore the reality that climate change is the primary issue facing marine ecosystems and species. Between 2012 and 2021, about 7,000 humpback whales died in the North Pacific due to starvation caused by marine heat waves. Ocean acidification caused by our carbon dioxide emissions makes it more difficult for organisms such as corals, mollusks, and plankton to build and maintain their shells and skeletons. There was a lot of misinformation presented tonight, and I obviously can't address all of it, but I urge you to read scientific research. They used Zero Hedge, which is rated conspiracy and questionable content, as a resource. Read scientific research. Speak with oceanographers and others who study climate. The climate crisis is defining.
Thank you, Susan.
All right, thank you.
AGP, is there anyone else in the queue?
Thank you, Mayor Wixom. Currently, I do not see any raised hands in the queue.
Thank you very much. With that, I will close public comment and bring it back to council. Thank you all for your comments tonight. I will just share one thing with you, that our city staff, led by our city manager and our harbor director, along with the rest of the executive team and this council as a whole, has been, currently is, and will continue to be at the seat, at the table for anything regarding offshore wind as it comes to us and in our community. So thank you all, but do know that we are participating and we are there. So thank you. With that, I'm going to move on to public comment on the, we have one thing left. Thank you. Consent agenda, public comment on items on the consent agenda. Seeing no public comment. AGP, is there anyone? Got to be on the consent agenda, not.
I didn't know if they were coming up, if they were going.
Okay,
I don't know.
on the consent agenda item?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, honestly, I always
Okay,
like to wait.
you have 3 minutes, go ahead.
Yep, sorry. Month of the Child, Child Abuse Prevention Month, and Fair Housing Month. What a joke. I'm always telling people that I would never raise a child in this city. There is no freedom here, and it's only gotten worse. We demand obedience and acquiescence. There are no places that a child could go to be free, to learn to inhabit a world all their own. I spent my childhood losing myself in the woods so that I wouldn't lose myself in school or at home. When I went to Morro Bay High School, we at least could sneak off of campus if we needed to get away from our confinement and quote-unquote education. But now it looks more like a jail than ever before. I should point out that any of my friends that I know for a fact were raped or suffered serious psychological harm suffered it at the hands of people that they knew, people that fences could never keep away. Besides, is it not child abuse to force a parent to work 2 or 3 jobs to care for their family, or to force a child to grow up in subpar living conditions because their family cannot afford better? As far as fair housing, well, that really must be a joke. One of those absurd liberal jokes about pretending to provide for the less fortunate by throwing them scraps and humming and hawing about not being able to do more. I would like to take a moment to thank Yvonne Kimball for her presentation at the last meeting, specifically the part regarding the cost of living. I would not have otherwise taken the time to find out this specific information, such as the fact that our cost of living sits at about 51.7% above the national average, and median housing costs are about $829,000. That is median, not average. You want to talk about fair housing? Let's talk about property values. You guys could find a way to bring them down and make living here more affordable, but then you would be losing capital and having to deal with the unwashed masses shopping at the same stores as you or walking down the same streets. There is, of course, another cure for high property values: property crime. I won't have to deal with that, as I do not own the property within which I live. I never keep tools or valuables outside, and I don't even bother to lock my car. Even parked out there right now, my door is not locked. There's nothing of any value in there. There's no coins in the little coin keeper. My stereo is ostensibly thief-proof, and there are literal rust holes in my hood. I do not see anybody stealing it.
AGP, do we have anyone in the queue?
Madam Mayor, we have no raised hands in the queue.
Thank you. If there's no more public comment on the consent agenda, I will close public comment period and bring it back to council and ask if anyone wants to pull anything from the consent agenda 7A to 7F. I will ask for a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. With that, we are at the end of our agenda for the night. Is there any future agenda items at this time that council members are interested in bringing forward?
I have one. I would like to have a conversation about the possibility of passing a resolution to oppose the pending bill AB 2560, which eliminates the exemption of the coastal zone from the state's housing density bonus law. It's overriding the Coastal Commission, which was created by the Coastal Act that was passed by a vote of the people, and I just think it bears the conversation because we are in that zone.
Would that be community development or the city attorney?
I would think that we could, Director Cadron and I could both talk about this. I've heard about this bill, and it would impact definitely coastal cities.
I would support information on that.
Thank you.
Yes, I see another head nod. Yes, so 3. Thank you. Anything else? With that, we are adjourned.
So